I'm at the PwC African Financial Services Journal, and here with me is Victor Muguto. He's the PwC African Financial Services leader. The Africa CEO survey done by PwC. Tell us more about that.
So what we did is actually a global CEO survey where we interviewed in excess of 1,000 CEOs around the world to look at the issues and changes that they see as impacting on their businesses in the foreseeable future. So we did look at, as I said, about 1,300 CEOs around the world, and with that, specific interviews with selected CEOs in detail to discuss some of the topical issues affecting them. What we saw in the survey is that certain themes are starting to emerge as being hugely transformational to businesses and coming on the top of the agenda of CEOs. Things like technology, demographic changes that we see around the world, and the shifts in economic power from developed markets to the developing world. And this is starting to shape the way CEOs think around their businesses and how they might seek opportunities to grow their businesses in that changing environment.
Technology seems to be gaining more prominence than regulation. Regulation has been a concern, but technology seems to be ticking up. Could you take us through that?
So in my mind, as we've seen in previous surveys, regulation has been on top of the agenda. There is now acceptance around the world that regulation is something that CEOs and companies need to embrace. And in fact, in our own local environment, we've seen insurers and bankers adopt their various aspects of regulation and implement transformation programs to implement these regulatory changes. If we look at insurers, they've embraced SAM. That's already entrenched in the projects that we see, and in fact will come to be implemented as expected in 2016. So it hasn't gone away. And there's also acceptance that CEOs cannot change anything about regulation. It's something they have to adapt to. But in fact, the things that they can change are the opportunities that are being created by things like technology, demographic changes, and the increasing wealth that we are seeing in the developing markets. So those are three areas that present opportunities as well as challenges that CEOs need to deal with. And that's probably why they're coming top of the list at this stage.
And then let's come back to Africa. What are the trends that are coming up? What is the Africa theme in the survey?
So without singling out a specific country, the themes are consistent. Technology, in its simplest forms, is changing the way business is done in Africa. If I look at East Africa as an example, we've seen how they've used the mobile phone technologies to change their money transfer systems with the M-Pesa. We're seeing moves to distribute simple insurance products through cell phones and tablets. And these are new developments that are beneficial to the continent when you consider that the majority of our economies and populations are rural-based. So it's a welcome development, which in my mind will grow the insurance market and in fact financial services market. There is opportunity, and you mentioned asset managers, but I think it runs across all financial services to become more efficient as a way of becoming more competitive and in fact to distribute their products cheaper to consumers that are more aware of their needs and more demanding. And cutting out paperwork out of the value chain is one area that technology can assist in. At the same time, there's also the need to use and embrace the use of technology for analytical procedures that help and speed up the pricing processes. We see it in insurance, where your underwriters are starting to use analytical techniques, using technology to be more proactive in assessing trends in the marketplace, using that for pricing. We see it in other institutions where carriers are using analytical information through technology to be proactive in managing risk rather than waiting for insurance claims, for example. So being proactive rather than reactive is seen as a positive step, and the whole technology environment is presenting opportunities for efficiencies, which are welcome.
What do you think are going to be the key themes in 2014 in the financial services industry this year?
That's very difficult for me to say at this stage. I would be speculating, but you do know that we've got elections ahead. At the same time, I think we've got various things that are happening in the regulatory space. For example, we've got the Twin Peaks model, which has been introduced, and that's progressing. So in the background of the political side, there's a lot of activity that is happening on the regulatory side, which in my mind I think will help to create a better environment for financial services going forward. So the longer term I think looks positive in my mind, but there's a journey to be traveled.